President, council members, friends. This is my 8th annual report to you on the state of our township. And I'm happy to once again be able to report that there are no major uncontrolled problems, that good government continues, and that East Brunswick continues to grow and prosper and strengthen its position as the most desirable community in central New Jersey to live or locate a business. This enviable position has resulted from the mutual efforts of 3 groups of people: the residents of our community, the officials of our community appointed as well as elected, and the professional and other employees of the township. One cannot be involved in local affairs for very long and fail to be made aware of the unique resource which the people of East Brunswick represent. The people of our town are diverse in background, vocal in their opinions, and active in their community. By and large, they care a great deal for our town and for their fellow residents. They possess a great wealth of knowledge and training, as well as plain old common sense. And they expect the best of municipal government and of their town. The people of East Brunswick are collectively and individually our greatest natural resource. And we all receive the benefit of this natural resource. Today, there are nearly 300 of our residents who serve as appointed officials on the various statutory and advisory boards of the township. Citizen advice is sought and listened to in nearly every area of municipal policy and activity: in recreation, planning, housing, cultural affairs, water policy, environmental affairs, health, budget preparation, historic preservation, economic planning, and others. There are active citizen advisory boards which have almost complete autonomy in setting their agendas and formulating their programs and recommendations to the mayor and council. The result of all of this effort is that every area of community life is focused upon and examined, and citizens of our community have a very real voice and role in shaping the direction of municipal government and the character of life in East Brunswick. The third group of people who are responsible for East Brunswick's position as the premier community in central New Jersey are our employees. Not a one of the elected or appointed officials of East Brunswick actually do any of the things required to carry out the policies and goals which they establish. Not a one of us digs trenches, coordinates programs, patrols the streets, registers voters, cuts grass on municipal property, nor any of the thousands of other things required to make municipal government operate and serve the people of East Brunswick. It is the township employees who provide the direct physical and mental labor which results in service to us and our fellow residents. And we have the most dedicated, hardest working, and competent employees of any town, anywhere. Highly motivated, competent employees working in an environment where they are encouraged to give their best has produced dozens of outstanding programs which are truly effective, and just one of which most communities would be delighted to have. All of these programs have as their genesis the desire to contain cost or better serve the public, or both. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, they say, and hardly a day goes by without some agency from outside the township asking for information or a visit to see how East Brunswick does it. And these programs make a substantial contribution to the quality of life in our community. Our library is the premier public library in the state and easily ranks among the top 10 or 20 in the whole country. The Camp Daisy program of therapeutic recreation is a model for the whole state, is widely copied in one form or another, and serves the special needs of special residents of East Brunswick in an outstanding manner. Our park system is the envy of many communities and provides an outstanding recreational resource for our people. The Senior Citizen Program is outstanding in its service to our older residents and is one of the few around which is not dependent on the availability of federal or state funds for its existence. The cultural programs embodied in the events sponsored by the Arts Commission and Friends and Neighbors Council, the Museum Corporation, and Playhouse 22 give East Brunswick one of the richest and most active cultural lives around. The Transportation Center provides parking and convenient bus service for commuting residents at no cost to the taxpayer. The community beach provides summer recreation, which is competitive with the best private swim clubs and is totally member supported. Our police department solves more than twice as many crimes as the average of other communities across our state. The Shade Tree program has been recognized as outstanding by the Arbor Day Foundation for the 5th year in a row. And for every one of these which are visible, there are others which are not visible, but which contribute to the effective management of municipal government and the provision of services to our residents. There is no other community in central New Jersey that can even come close to us in amenities and services to its residents. Now, anyone can provide a lot of services if they spend a lot of money. So an evaluation of these services must include an analysis of the impact on the tax dollar. Doing such an analysis is complex, since the economy has been rather unstable and we've experienced recent periods of high inflation, but it can be done and a reasonable evaluation made. The first approach is to examine how we're doing relative to other towns in our county. East Brunswick is 7th in population in Middlesex County, based on the 1980 census figures. Since population size drives service demands and levels, population rank is a good measure to compare spending and taxation against. A ranking of 7 in expenditures or tax rate would not be unreasonable with a population rank of 7. Higher than 7 would be reason to question the size of the municipal budget, and anything lower than 7 says we're doing better than we might. When such an analysis is done, East Brunswick, with the 7th largest population, ranks only 12th in per capita expenditures and only 12th in effective tax rate for municipal purposes. Similarly, although the county and school districts have increased the use of property tax dollars by about 46% since 1979, municipal government has had an increase of only about 23% during that same period. Considering that the value of the dollar decreased by 26% during the period, the county and school district had a real growth in tax burden of about 20%, while municipal government had an actual decrease of 3%. In 1979, property taxes represented a majority, or 54% of the funds to operate municipal government. In 1983, property tax revenues represent only 48% of the municipal budget, which is a substantial reduction in reliance on property tax, even though federal and state funding has been reduced. The summary result of all of this is the conclusion that municipal government service and facilities in East Brunswick are a bargain, and another of the many reasons why East Brunswick is the choice location to live or locate a business. Good people, good services, good public facilities, and effective government have combined to give our town a strong sense of community and cause our people to be proud to live in East Brunswick. But unfortunately, there is a negative force in our midst, which mindlessly and ignorantly threatens the progress made over the past 10 years, and indeed threatens the vitality of our town, the sense of community which so many have worked so hard to foster, and the community pride which we rightly feel. This threat is characterized by deception, division, and derision. Deception ranging from outright lies to the admission of the truth or misleading assumptions. Division in attempting to pit one segment of the community against the other, and derision of our community and the quality of life in it. Truth is sometimes painful, often frustrating, and many times disagreeable. But truth is also beautiful. The unadulterated fact held up for all to see has no equal in the creations of man or nature. Our society today has developed a distrust of institutions in general, and government in particular. This distrust, if carried to extreme, could mean the collapse of our democracy. It is therefore the responsibility of every person who is in the public eye or service to work against this distrust. Truth is the strongest antidote for distrust. And this municipal government has had one overriding principle. We tell the truth, no matter how painful, no matter how unpleasant, or no matter how frustrating to those who want to hear a different answer. And if I were not in office, I would not want the government of my town or state or country to do any different. Being in office, I view the truth as the most sacred trust given me by the people. Now I recognize, and I hope you do also, that the truth teller is often at a disadvantage when confronted by the liar. Lies are usually simple. The truth is often complex. One lie of a few words can require paragraphs to respond to. Lies know no boundaries. Truth is self-contained. But I also recognize that while the liar can gain a momentary advantage, lies are transient, while truth is everlasting. And in the end, the advantage is with the truth teller. Because ultimately, the people know, and especially the people of East Brunswick. And there are forces which would divide our community, would pit one group against another for their own gain, would destroy the unity of spirit which is evolved in our town, and would tear down rather than build up because they see advantage in turmoil, because they believe that they can gain support for their otherwise unsupported cause by getting people to band together against some imagined threat from some other segment of the population of our town. A familiar strategy from another era, but also one which has been rejected by the people time and time again, and which has been and will be rejected in East Brunswick. And there are those members of the community who, for their own reasons, take every opportunity to deride East Brunswick, who manufacture problems which don't exist, who tell you that East Brunswick is going downhill in its quality of life and its attractiveness to potential home buyers or business owners. We who live here know differently. We know that the quality of life here is the finest. We know that it is a good place to live and work. But imagine the damage that thoughtless statements can do if believed by those who don't already live here and might be deterred by hearing them. The value of the property of each and every one is placed in jeopardy. Our ability to attract non-residential ratables is placed in jeopardy. And indeed, the very future of our community is placed in jeopardy. Each and every one of us must take it as our personal responsibility to make it clear that while we are willing and able to confront and deal with every real problem in the community which might arise, such mindless, derogatory statements about East Brunswick will not be tolerated and are not acceptable to us. Now, for the remainder of my message, I would like to turn my attention to four specific areas: environmental issues, water supply, planning, and economic development. Environmental issues have dominated the agenda of municipal government in East Brunswick for the past 10 years. 10 years ago, East Brunswick undertook the development of a natural resource inventory, or NRI, which was completed in 1975. Many towns in New Jersey have not today yet initiated such a study. Now, the NRI has had many uses. Combined with recommendations from the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board, it was a major factor in open space planning and acquisition, and the most sensitive of the sites identified have been acquired for preservation. The NRI was the starting point for the 1976 Comprehensive Master Plan and was the basis for the Town Green Plan. And it continues to be used today in the evaluation of proposals for development. Along with the NRI and its use, there have been numerous ordinances enacted with an environmental purpose. Controls over tree removal, soil mining, stream protection, aquifer protection, noise pollution, and air quality are only the major areas. East Brunswick, for example, is the only community which has implemented all of the recommendations of the countywide 208 water quality studies done in the 70s. We were the first town in the state to implement the EPA water quality monitoring regulations, and then to exceed them by instituting water testing twice a year, rather than only every 3 years as the regulations require. Our water supply was recently subjected to the most rigorous testing of any water supply in the country and met all standards, official and unofficial, with flying colors. Indeed, some tests of our water against bottled water show our water to be of superior or equal qualities. And yet, despite the fact that these tests have been performed and are available to all officials and to the public, there are those who persist in claiming that our water is contaminated. Often, these are the same people who claim that East Brunswick is going downhill. Similarly, there are those who persist in claiming that massive amounts of toxic material have been dumped in the landfill, and that the landfill is contaminating the water supply. This despite the fact that there is regular testing of the liquid material leaching from the landfill, which has shown no contamination, that there is no physical connection between the landfill and the water supply, and that testing of the water supply itself shows no such contamination. This, my friends, is the worst kind of irresponsibility and deception. In these times of great fear and anxiety about health effects from the environment and uncertainty about the hazards from toxic waste, it is the modern-day equivalent of shouting fire in the crowded theater. Worse still, to do so in the face of factual evidence to the contrary threatens the investment of all of us in East Brunswick and the future of our community. I think it's time to end these unwarranted attacks on our environment. I think it's time to demand of the attackers documented evidence as good as the facts which support the high quality of our environment. And I say without reservation that the environment in East Brunswick is better than or as good as any town in New Jersey, and I intend to see that way, to see that it stays that way, and I defy anyone to prove otherwise. As many of you know, the contract which we have with the City of New Brunswick to treat the water we draw from surface sources expires at the end of 1985. As you also probably know, there is a Water Policy Advisory Council for East Brunswick made up of residents of our community, which has been examining alternatives to future supplies since early last year. They're now at the stage of developing costs for specific alternatives as a basis for a recommendation to me and the Township Council. A decision will have to be made within 2 to 4 months. At this time, it appears unlikely that the recommendation will be to continue with New Brunswick, but instead to contract with one of the private water purveyors in the county. Despite several attempts, formal and informal, to obtain the commitment of New Brunswick to upgrade their treatment facilities and to keep the price to East Brunswick reasonable, we have thus far been able to get a satisfactory response. The decision about water supply is one that will affect the community for many years, perhaps 30 or more, and one that involves millions of dollars in user fees to the residents of East Brunswick. It will require great care and deliberation based on objective analysis, and is one of the most important decisions any government of East Brunswick has faced. The so-called Mount Laurel II decision of the New Jersey Supreme Court, which was recently handed down, continues the Supreme Court's redefinition of a community's housing responsibilities. Of immediate importance to East Brunswick is that we were ordered to retry our part of the Urban League case in order to have the court rule upon the constitutionality of our zoning ordinances as they apply to housing. It is my belief that our ordinances will be found to be in compliance. East Brunswick has been cited across our state as an example of a community which is meeting its legal and moral responsibility in housing. I believe that this recognition is creating an image that, combined with the facts of our planning and implementing ordinances, will result in the ordinances being found to be valid. Now, I read in the press that many people claim to be confused as to the requirements which the Supreme Court has placed on municipalities. But I think the court was rather clear. It said, while you can have orderly planning and zoning, every municipality must take, and I say every municipality, must take reasonable affirmative steps to encourage lower cost housing for its own poor, and in the case of developing municipalities such as East Brunswick, must provide a fair share of lower cost housing for the region in which it exists. Failing to do this, if challenged by a builder or landowner, will result in the court permitting the builder to construct whatever type of housing he wants, wherever he happens to have property. And in addition, the court will order the town to redo its ordinances under court supervision. I, for one, prefer to control our own destiny in zoning and housing, and I am convinced that our master plan and ordinances are constitutional, and we will retain control in East Brunswick. It was indeed the decade of an emphasis on quality of life in our community. Now that these things have been accomplished, the next decade should be the decade of emphasis on economic development. Over the past 5 years, the Council on Economic Health and the Planning Board have been working diligently on planning the economic development of the community. They have focused on two issues: maintenance of existing businesses and the attraction of new business. In the process, we have extensively revised zoning requirements for commercial and industrial zones, examined the strengths and competitive weaknesses of East Brunswick compared to other surrounding towns, and developed plans for the improvement of Highway 18. In addition, many of the property owners of existing businesses have made substantial improvements in appearance and decor. During the same period, many new businesses have come to East Brunswick, and existing ones have expanded. New businesses like Owens, Illinois, Action Tungsram, U.S. Steel, and a major expansion at Continental Baking. But the hopes for Route 18 have not materialized. Apparently, attractive zoning and assistance from municipal government are not enough to cause the private sector to act. Much of the problem lies in the diverse ownership of the properties along Route 18, which make it difficult to package parcels large enough to develop attractively. The Council on Economic Health has recommended that we create an instrument for economic development, similar to that which exists in many towns, but until now, that recommendation has not been implemented. I believe that the time to implement their recommendation is now, and I will be bringing to the Council the enabling ordinances later this month. I will be recommending the establishment of an economic development authority with the full power to acquire and redevelop properties after proper authorization by the Township Council. In order for the authority to acquire any property, the Township Council would first have to ask the Planning Board to have a hearing to determine if the property could be declared blighted. If the Planning Board made a finding of blight, they would then report that to the Council along with a redevelopment plan. Once these findings and recommendations were accepted by the Township Council, the authority could proceed to find a developer and acquire the property for redevelopment. The authority would most likely not own property, but would serve as a packaging and promotion agent to stimulate development. I see Route 18 as the primary focus of the proposed authority. For years, everyone's been hoping that something could be done to realize the true economic potential of 18 and improve the image of the gateway to our town. This is an active way to accomplish this goal and will make a significant difference in the economic growth of East Brunswick. And when it is successful, people entering our town on Route 18 will know that they are in the best Brunswick, East Brunswick.